Hello, this is the TradeSite U.S. Stocks and Futures Market Preview for the week beginning Sunday, the 12th of May, 2024, ending Friday the 17th. This will be options expiration week for May, which is not a triple expiration, so it's still there, but it's nothing special or spectacular. So we'll see what happens. Here's a look at the dollar index daily chart. As you can see, still mid-range for the last year. Not a lot going on from that perspective. Here's the Euro-dollar futures on the daily chart. Usually the inverse of the dollar index. There's been a little bit of divergence there recently, but overall, still just not much going on. Obviously, that 13 sell signal back at the end of the year was the high, and that is how that signal is supposed to work. Pound dollar also worked perfectly. You got the 13 sell signal bumped into the pink risk line of that, which would have been, if you get above that by much, you got the stop out point, but we didn't. So that has worked, but it's just, this thing has been dead flat for quite a while. Here's the ES front month futures contract. This is the daily chart of the broad market in futures form. And as you can see, getting back near highs again, because why not? We did get some weird data this week, but we'll see, especially on the PMI number on Friday. So, but it didn't seem to shake the market much yet, and we still have interest rate stuff, and I think a lot of people are waiting for the lower rates to suggest that they're done with the inflationary issues. But we don't know anything about that this week. S&P cash, obviously back near highs. NASDAQ 100 also back near highs. Russell 2000, not at highs, did sell off today after that number, but it's still in the top end of the range by the top 10%. Crude oil down to 78.20. Obviously, this thing's been so much affected by the war and everything that's going on. But look at that 13 sell signal back in October. That was the high from that move, and that worked too. So we've had a lot of good signals on the seeker side that have been working very well on these major indices. Okay, Bitcoin had a 13 sell signal as well at the beginning of April. That was the sell-off point there, so that also worked. But it's sitting at 60,000 again after getting back to almost 74,000. TLT, the 20-year bond ETF, pretty flat week on the bonds, mid-range for the last 6 months or so. As I say, rates down, bonds up, bonds down, rates up, whatever. It is what it is. The VIX, though, this is the problem. Boy, we started to get some excitement. We spiked all the way to 21 on the VIX a couple weeks ago. It looked like it was going to get interesting. And now, so quickly, here we are back at 12.57. That means no volatility, or that's why we're not seeing action in the markets. Basically, what this is explained by is the puts and calls purchasing is equal, and that means that the market is fairly protected right now, and there's nothing shaking it. So that does not bode well for movement in the market, and it's really awful because we're coming into summer. Advanced decline ratio in the New York, back and forth all week, but nothing major. Look at none of these days were huge from that perspective either way. Trend closes at 1.15, puts the 10-day moving average at 1.04. That's above the 0.85 level. That would have been a sell signal, so we've got nothing here to really hang your hat on. Here's the week intraday on 10-minute candles. So you can see last Friday on the far left, small gap up Monday, kind of drifted higher and then popped at the very end. Remember, we still had some earnings this week. Tuesday, small gap up, dead flat day. Wednesday, gap back down. That fills the gap from Tuesday morning, filled the gap from Wednesday, and then closed basically flat for the session. Thursday, flat opening, rallied a little bit. Friday, little gap up, filled it, and then flat. I mean, the intraday action here is horrible, but that's representative of the VIX just being where it is. And so that's what we need to see is we want to see some volatility. We need some kind of news. It's funny, there's so much news in the world right now between interest rates and the political year and everything that's going on with the Trump trial and everything that's going on in the Middle East and everything that's going on with Russia and Ukraine. And there's solar flares and all this stuff. And none of the market seems to care about any of it right now. So this is as flat as it gets. It's actually not a good sign, though, by the way. The few times I've seen this in my career, and I have seen it before, it doesn't usually end well. So we'll see what happens. Apple, this is the daily charts of some of the big stocks we like to watch. Apple, had gapped up, and we got a sell signal on Apple. So we're short Apple right now, and it didn't have much of a week, obviously. Amazon at highs, Meta on its way back up, Google got a 13 sell signal on the daily chart even, so that's working as well, but it kind of bounced a little bit this week. Goldman Sachs at all-time highs, Netflix at all-time highs. Tesla had filled the gap, it had gapped up and then filled the gap, not suffering from the earnings. Everybody trying to make it sound like Tesla's in a lot of trouble. And, there's obviously issues there, but the stock's already down enough that I don't know if it's going to, continue to have problems. We'll see what happens. NVIDIA, nice pattern here in general. Breakout over the highs from the last week or so would be very interesting. And if it happens, this stock's been on such a tear. I mean, I don't know how much you want to touch it. I wouldn't hold it overnight ever, but I mean, from an intraday perspective, you do what you do. Zoom near lows, even though they've got a bunch going on there. It's a really solid company. First Solar also at highs for the last 6 months. So, not a lot of damage out there right now. Nothing to really hang your hat on in terms of like trouble to look at. The economic question is a big one, but so far there's rising issues with car loans, there's rising issues with mortgage payments. But at the same time, if interest rates start to tick back down and there's room for them to go back down, can that solve some of that in a couple months if it turns into an issue? So we will see how that goes, and if so, then the market will probably remain fairly strong. In terms of economic data coming out this week, just looking here in the U.S., got some Fed members speaking on Monday, but no actual data. Tuesday, we've got the NFIB Small Business Index at 6 a.m. Eastern Time, PPI at 8:30. That's not the one inflationary-wise that the world looks at. A couple more Fed members speaking. But on Wednesday, we have the CPI. So that's the big focal point for the week. If that's, it's been coming back down. If that falls in line, that would probably be a positive, and suggest that they could lower interest rates probably late this year for the first time. Empire State Manufacturing Index and retail sales also at 8:30 a.m. on Wednesday. Business inventories at 10. NAHB Housing Market Index at 10. Crude oil inventories at 10:30. Tick long-term purchases at the close. And then on Thursday, there's a bunch of data. I got the initial and continuing jobless claims. That's a weekly number. That's at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Housing starts and building permits. Philly Fed Manufacturing Index. And then at 9:15, industrial production and capacity utilization. More Fed members speaking. Natty Gas at 10:30. More Fed members speaking. They're all talking this week, right? And then Friday, no data at all. So it's going to be late. Just keep in mind that we get through this week. So options expiration is Friday. So if there is an unraveling move, it would be Wednesday, maybe Thursday. That's probably the biggest move of the week. Wednesday is the day I would focus on because you get the CPI and then the options unravel. Friday is going to be a bust because it's options expiration. And then just keep in mind the week after the Friday will probably be a bust because we head into a 3-day weekend for Memorial Day weekend. And that's never super exciting. Charts as usual brought to you by NinjaTrader. If you've not yet taken a trial of our services, feel free to do so. We will help you out for a couple of weeks. Have a great trading week.